Hello and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. We're going to have a look at where we took off in the last video. So I'm in the game state blueprint here. Okay, you can see that in the top right here. It says my parent blueprint game state. Kind of tells me there as well my game state event graph. What we've done so far is built this data structure. We've taken our data structure from our data tables and populated these two data structures, okay, deck 1 and deck 2. And these are my struct values, or data types. Then we have the begin play event, which has a sequence which calls that function, and then has this kind of groovy networking thing going on where it runs a function that kind of creates a reference for my client's widget on the client, and on the host it creates a reference for the host's widget. Okay, so now that we've done that, we have a way of kind of telling the game state that we want to send information from these to the widget that belongs to the host or the client. Okay, so how do I talk to my widget? Well, unfortunately, the widget is in a totally different class to the data table that we've created. Okay, and for good reason. This is obviously going to be replicated across the client and the host, and this one cannot be replicated. Okay, so if it can't be replicated, I need to pass information from the game state to the right widget. Okay, so what we have to do in the widget is expand some of the functionality of the widget. We're going to basically say, there's something that my game state can do, and I want you to see the results of that in this widget so that I can expose the values of these decks effectively. What value I'm holding in my deck. Okay. So we are going to need a new blueprint here, and the blueprint we're after is a blueprint interface, a collection of one or more functions, name only, no implementation. So effectively, let's just create this and call it widget blueprint. Okay, so no implementation means that this is a read-only blueprint. So we're not going to actually build any functions. We're not going to implement this blueprint. It's not going to do anything on its own. We have to kind of implement it in another blueprint, in another class. So by default, I've got this function entry. This called new function 0. I'm going to call this call it widget update, or update widget, probably better. So update widget, like that. Okay, so it's renamed my function, and I am going to pass in a reference to my structure, like that. So it knows the information that it's going to pass through can only be a structure reference, so I couldn't pass something other than a structure reference to it. I'm just going to call that a struct there. So I'm not setting this to an array. I only want to pass to my host or my client, which might be on the other side of the network, just one value. I don't want to pass them the whole list of all the cards. I just want one reference, and I could just leave this function like that, but I want to be able to see which card I'm actually passing. I've got 24 cards in the deck. I want to know which number card I'm using, so I'm just going to so I can debug it later. We can always take this out. I'm going to pass in the index, and this wants to be an integer value, so it's just going to be a number. I'm going to compile and save that, and we can close this for now. Okay, so what do we have here? We have a widget blueprint that we can call from another blueprint. So I'm going to come down here now and create a new custom function. So I'm in my game state blueprint again. Okay, so add my custom event here. Just double click on that too quickly. And this is kind of getting into some of the game logic now. And what we're going to do is we're going to come up here and just to keep things a bit tidy and on the screen all at the same time, I'm going to add a little sequence here. I like these, I kind of find these quite useful to keep things tidy. And what I want to do is, if I've done this right, and I haven't because I probably want to compile this first. Sequence has no valid outputs yet, not yet, he hasn't. So I am going to call update widget. Oh, look at that. So it sees the widget blueprint that we just created, and it sees this update widget, and it's kind of prefix or postfix with this message in brackets. Okay, so I'm going to send a message through my widget blueprint effectively, and look at that. Look, the two values that we set up in the widget blueprint, the structure and the index, are now input values on this function. So what would we put in there? Let's compile that. And we've got a little error now from this. It says that we haven't got any valid inputs. So let's get them. So first of all, my target, well, I am sending a reference to one of my values from my shuffled deck to, well, the first one is going to go to, well, let's do the host. My target's going to be my host. The structure that the host uses is the deck 1, doesn't he? So he gets deck 1. So this is an array value. We can't pass him an array value because it only accepts an individual kind of structure value. So we're going to have to get a value from this array. Okay, and this is going to default to value 0. So if I just pass that in like that, now I'm not always going to call value 0, but at this point I don't need to worry about, I do want to call the first value in my structure in this case, or it's not too much of an issue, because I'm going to reuse this interface later on. So this is just like when the game first starts, we need to just pass in the first card from the deck, whichever it was shuffled. So that's fine, and it is going to be index 0, so I'm not going to worry about what that right now. I am now going to, though, just compile that, and we should get rid of that error. And I want to do the same again for the client. So update widget like that, and this time we have the client as the target like that, and we want deck 2. I'm going to take that and get the first item out of that array, and we're going to drop that in there like that. This is really messy. Okay, that's one of the issues with blueprints, I guess. You kind of end up with lots of wires, and you know, it never looks clean. Compile and save. Okay, we're getting somewhere. We're passing something into a widget. So what are we passing into the widget here? Well, at the moment, kind of that information, that data is exposed to my widget, but my widget isn't doing anything with it. So let's have a quick look at the widget here. So I'm in my widget in its graph, and I now want to kind of populate my buttons, but it's not the buttons I want to populate, is it? It's my text boxes on my buttons. Remember these things here? So text views. Now I can't see them in my variables list, so if you come into this view here and select is a variable for each one of these, then I can start referencing them in my scripts. So going into the graph mode, I'm just going to compile save, because you can see there each one of those those buttons now has a reference in my variables list. Okay, just going to move along to the side here, and I need to do something. I need to pass in all this information from my game state. So we built a widget. We built an interface to be able to send information via the interface to my widget. Okay, but we've got to implement the interface. So we, in the game state, we sent the message through the widget, through the interface, but we have to implement the interface here. So we have to do that through the class settings, and we have an interfaces section here. No interface is implemented at the moment. We can click on that add. It gives you this drop down button here, and we are looking for the widget blueprint interface that we created. Yes, I've called it the wrong thing, haven't I? What did I call it there? Yeah, widget blueprint. I should have called that widget interface, but never mind. Okay, so yeah, there it is, implemented. I want to compile that because it won't actually, if you search for the function, the update widget function, it won't exist unless we've compiled. And we are going to search for that update widget function, yeah. But this one, you can see I've got an event here, and I've got a call function here, but I've also got this widget blueprint class, which is my widget interface class, which I want to do this interface call from. Okay. No, that's not right. Sorry. Right click, and you're searching for an event update widget. It was the event update widget. Okay, so effectively what this is saying is we have this, and I'm just going to rename them. I'm going to rename him because it's confusing. He's just a blueprint. He should be an interface. Okay, and if I just open him up, so there he is. I've called this function from a game state. The little envelope there indicates that this is an interface that I'm calling, or sending a message through here. I've passed in these two values here, and then in my widget I get them. Okay, and there's that little kind of icon in the top right tells me that this is the interface. And now I have a reference to my structure. So if I pull that out here and break my structure, there it is. These are the values that are going to be passed from the game state and into my HUD widget, my widget. Okay, so how do I populate these buttons? Well, I think that is something we need to cover in the next tutorial. So I'll break it here and come back to that. Thank you.